Push your tray along the steel rails, past the glass counter fogged with steam, and pick a table by the window overlooking the high street. For decades, the Woolworths Café was where Britain paused mid-shop, pensioners nursing a pot of tea, children swinging their legs beneath a sundae as tall as their pride. Then, in the winter of 2009, the doors closed for good, and the trays fell silent. These are the 25 café meals every Brit ordered before Woolies vanished. Let's begin with number 25. Number 25. Frothy coffee and a fondant fancy was the little indulgence that cost next to nothing but felt like a treat. The machine behind the counter hissed and spluttered, topping a glass cup with a cap of pale foam that clung to your top lip with the first sip. Beside it sat a fondant fancy in its fluted paper case, pink or yellow, iced smooth and soft enough to press with a thumb. In the 1970s, the pair set you back around 15 pence. Small change for a mid-morning sit-down. Shoppers laden with bags dropped into a plastic chair, kicked off the weight of the day, and lingered over that froth long after it had gone cold. Oral histories recall the ritual of the mid-shop rest, the clatter of spoons, and the way that little cake made an ordinary Tuesday feel a fraction more like a day out. Number 24. The toasted buttered tea cake was the quiet hero of the Woolworths Café, a plain pleasure that never let anyone down. Split, toasted under the grill, and served with a foil-wrapped pat of butter melting into the warm dough, it filled the gap between breakfast and dinner without emptying a purse. Currants dotted the surface like little dark jewels, and the smell of toasting fruit bread drifted over the counter, pulling in shoppers who had only meant to buy a light bulb. By the 1980s, a tea cake and a pot of tea came to well under 50 pence, a bargain that pensioners guarded jealously. Grandmothers brought grandchildren for the ceremony of spreading the butter right to the edges. Diaries recall the warmth of that first bite, the tea poured strong, and the simple contentment of a corner table with the town moving past the glass. Number 23. The cheese and onion cob was the working man's lunch. Honest and unpretentious. A crusty white roll, split and packed with a thick wedge of cheddar and rings of raw onion sharp enough to make your eyes water. It needed nothing more than a smear of margarine and a shake of salt. Wrapped in a paper napkin, it traveled well from the counter to a table, or out the door for a lunch break spent on a bench. In the 1970s, a cob cost only a few pence, cheap enough for anyone counting coppers before payday. Labourers and shopgirls alike queued for one, biting through crust and crumb to the tang beneath. Oral histories recall the strength of that onion, the arguments over whether to pick it out, and the way a plain roll and a mug of tea could carry a person clear through a long afternoon. Number 22. Beans on toast was the meal you ordered when your pockets were light, but your stomach was loud. 2 slices of thick white bread, toasted and buttered, drowned under a ladle of bright orange beans steaming in their sweet tomato sauce. It was comfort on a melamine plate. The cafe version always tasted better than home. The toast somehow crisper, the beans somehow richer, though it was the same tin everyone kept in the cupboard. By the 1980s, it cost barely 30 pence, the anchor of the cheap eats menu. Children ordered it because it was the only thing they trusted, mothers because it was the only thing they could afford. Diaries from the era recall the puddle of sauce soaking into the toast, the race to finish before it turned soggy, and the quiet satisfaction of a hot meal that asked almost nothing of a tight weekly budget. Number 21. Egg and chips was the plainest plate on the menu, and for many, the best. A fried egg with a wobbling golden yolk sat proudly atop a mound of chips, the whole thing glistening under the cafe lights, waiting for the vinegar bottle, and a heavy dusting of salt. The chips were thick-cut and soft in the middle, the sort that soaked up yolk like a sponge when you broke it with a fork. In the 1970s, a plate cost around 30 pence, making it the fallback for families watching every penny on a Saturday shop. Children begged for it, fathers approved of it, and mothers ordered it knowing nothing would come back uneaten. Oral histories recall the ceremony of bursting the yolk, dragging each chip through the gold, and the contented silence that fell over a table when egg and chips arrived. Number 20. Cream of tomato soup with a crusty roll warmed shoppers through the grey depths of a British winter. Poured thick and scarlet into a shallow bowl, dusted with a swirl of pepper, it came with a buttered white roll for dunking and a paper napkin tucked beneath the spoon. The steam rose in curls, fogging spectacles and softening the chill that came in off the pavement with every opening of the door. By the 1980s, soup and a roll cost under 40 pence, a cheap way to thaw out mid-shop. Elderly regulars swore by it, cradling the bowl for the warmth as much as the flavor. Diaries recall the first spoonful scalding the tongue, the roll torn and dropped in to soak, and the way a bowl of tinned tomato soup served by a stranger at a counter could feel like the kindest meal in town. Number 19. Ham, egg and chips was the Café classic that made a plain plate feel like a proper dinner. 2 slices of pink boiled ham fanned out beside a fried egg, and a generous pile of chips, the sort of meal that filled a tray and left you loosening your belt. It was the order for a special Saturday, when the shop had gone well and the family felt they had earned something more than beans. In the 1970s, it cost around 45 pence, dear enough to feel like a treat, but cheap enough to justify. Children eyed the ham suspiciously and traded it for extra chips, while fathers made short work of the lot. Oral histories recall the pride in ordering the full plate, the salt of the ham against the soft yolk, and the sense that a café dinner was a small celebration in itself. Number 18. Sausage, egg and chips was the undisputed backbone of the Woolworths Café, the plate more Brits ordered than any other savory dish. 2 plump sausages, split and browned, leaned against a fried egg and a heap of chips, the whole thing waiting for a red flood of ketchup or a shake of brown sauce. It was the meal that fed the shopping trip, the reward for trailing round the store, the order shouted over the counter without a glance at the menu. By the 1980s, it landed at around 50 pence, the middle of the price list, and the heart of it too. Children thrilled at the sausages, parents at the value, and everyone at the certainty. Diaries recall the sizzle behind the counter, the sausages snapping under a fork, and the deep, uncomplicated joy of a fry-up served on a shopping day. Number 17. Fish and chips with mushy peas brought the seaside to the high street. No promenade required. A battered fillet, crisp and golden, sat beside thick chips and a scoop of bright green mushy peas, the vinegar bottle never far from reach. The café version came on a plate with a knife and fork and a slice of buttered bread on the side, a touch of civility the chippy never offered. In the 1970s, it cost around 55 pence, the premium end of the savory menu and worth every coin. Grandparents ordered it out of loyalty, children out of the promise of chips. Oral histories recall the crunch of the batter giving way to steaming white flesh, the peas dyed almost luminous, and the small ceremony of a proper fish supper eaten indoors, sheltered from the drizzle streaking the café window. Number 16. Scampi in a basket was the height of café sophistication, a taste of the swinging 70s served in a plastic wicker bowl. Golden bread-crumbed scampi tumbled together with a nest of chips and a wedge of lemon, a pot of tartar sauce set beside them for dipping. It felt fancy, exotic even, a dish borrowed from the gastropubs and served up in the middle of Woolworths as if it belonged there. By the late 1970s, a basket cost around 70 pence, the luxury order for those feeling flush. Couples chose it for a shopping day date, children for the novelty of the basket. Diaries recall the crunch of the coating, the tang of the tartar, and the quiet glamour of ordering something that sounded like a restaurant. When the fashion for baskets faded, scampi slipped away with it, remembered as the cafe's brief flirtation with the exotic. Number 15. The roast of the day was the Sunday dinner you could have on any afternoon of the week. A few slices of roast beef or pork, a Yorkshire pudding, a scoop of mash, and a ladle of thick brown gravy pooling over the edge of the plate. It delivered the whole ceremony of the roast without the hours of labor at home. In the 1970s, it was the dearest plate on the menu at around 80 pence, ordered by those who wanted a proper feed and could stretch to it. Pensioners living alone treasured it, a hot roast dinner served without the bother of cooking for one. Oral histories recall the comfort of that gravy, the meat perhaps a touch thin but warm and filling, and the dignity of sitting down to a full roast dinner among the bustle of a busy shopping floor. Number 14. Gammon steak with a pineapple ring was the plate that felt like eating out at a fancy carvery, tropical and daring for its day. A thick gammon steak, griddled until the fat crisped at the edges, arrived crowned with a glistening ring of tinned pineapple, sometimes a glace cherry set in the middle for good measure. Salty meat against sweet fruit, it was the sort of combination that divided the table and delighted the adventurous. In the 1970s, it cost around 75 pence, a proper treat plate ordered by those celebrating something small. Fathers claimed it as a manly meal. Children marveled at the fruit on a dinner. Diaries recalled the sweet and salt clash, the juice mingling with the gravy, and the sense that a gammon steak with pineapple was Woolworths reaching, just for a moment, toward the exotic. Number 13. Steak and kidney pie and chips brought the warmth of a proper suet supper to the cafe counter. A domed pie with a glossy pastry lid gave way to a dark, savory filling of beef and kidney in thick gravy, served with a heap of chips and a spoon of processed peas rolling around the plate. It was the meal for a cold day, the sort that steamed the moment your fork broke the crust and released the rich smell of long-simmered meat. By the 1980s, pie and chips came to around 60 pence, hearty value for a proper hot dinner. Older regulars swore by it, the kidney a taste that younger diners often shunned. Oral histories recall the crack of the pastry, the gravy soaking into the chips, and the deep, filling comfort of a cafe pie on a grey afternoon. Number 12. Cottage pie was the plate of pure comfort, mince and gravy crowned with a fork-ridged crust of mash browned under the grill. It arrived bubbling at the edges, the potato peaks crisped to gold, a spoon of peas or carrots pushed to one side of the plate. There was nothing clever about it, and that was the point. It tasted of home, even when home was a formica table under fluorescent light. In the 1970s, it cost around 50 pence. A reliable middle-of-the-menu order for families and lone diners alike. Mothers chose it for fussy children, pensioners for its softness and warmth. Diaries recall the ridges of mash catching the grill, the mince rich beneath, and the quiet reassurance of a dish that asked nothing and gave everything. When the cafe closed, it was these plainest plates that people seemed to miss the most. Number 11. Liver and onions with mash was the old-fashioned order that split the cafe straight down the middle. Slices of lamb's liver, fried until just firm, came smothered in soft caramelized onions and a river of thick gravy, with a mound of mash to soak it all up. The smell alone divided diners, strong and metallic, a scent that either drew you in or sent you to the pudding counter. In the 1970s, it was one of the cheapest hot dinners at around 40 pence, the thrifty choice for those who knew liver was rich in iron and heavy on value. Older shoppers ordered it with relish, remembering leaner years. Oral histories recall the tenderness of properly cooked liver, the sweetness of the onions, and the fierce loyalty of the regulars who mourned it when tastes turned and it slipped quietly from the board. Number 10. Faggots and peas carried the flavor of the Midlands into the Woolworths Café, a dish of pure, unfashionable thrift. 2 dark meatballs of seasoned pork offal sat in a pool of thick onion gravy, flanked by a spoon of mushy peas and a scoop of mash. It was the sort of plate that spoke of make-do and mend kitchens, savory and rich and heavy enough to see off the hungriest shopper. By the 1970s, faggots and peas cost around 45 pence, a filling bargain for those who knew what to order. Regulars in the black country cafes swore by it, ladling extra gravy over the peas. Diaries recall the deep herbal savor of the faggots, the sweetness of the gravy, and the way a dish born of using every scrap of the pig quietly held its place on the menu long after fashion had moved on. Number 9. Chips, cheese, and gravy was the guilty pleasure that teenagers ordered when the grown-ups weren't watching. A pile of café chips buried under a blanket of grated cheese and drowned in thick brown gravy that melted the lot into a glorious, tangled mess. It was less a meal than a dare. It cost next to nothing, around 30 pence in the 1980s, making it the natural order for school kids pooling their pocket money after the final bell. There was no elegance to it, only comfort and excess in equal measure. Oral histories recall the strings of melting cheese, the chips softening in the gravy, and the small rebellion of ordering something so gloriously unhealthy. For a generation of British youngsters, this was the taste of freedom, a first meal bought with their own coins at the Woolworths counter. Number 8. Welsh rarebit lifted humble cheese on toast into something worth ordering out. Thick slices of toast were smothered in a rich, savory cheese mixture, sometimes loosened with a splash of ale or a dab of mustard, then grilled until the top blistered and bubbled to a deep golden brown. It arrived hot enough to burn a careless tongue, the cheese still molten beneath its crust. In the 1970s, it cost around 35 pence, a satisfying light lunch that felt a cut above the everyday. Older diners ordered it with a pot of tea, savoring the sharp tang of the grilled cheese. Diaries recall the crackle of the bubbled top, the mustard's warmth, and the pleasure of a dish that took the plainest snack in Britain and dressed it up just enough to feel like a treat worth leaving the house for. Number 7. A warm sausage roll from the café counter was the impulse buy nobody could resist. Flaky golden pastry wrapped around a core of seasoned sausage meat, it sat under the warming lamp, shedding buttery crumbs, filling the air with a smell that stopped shoppers in their tracks. Bought on the way past, eaten standing up or carried to a table with a cup of tea, it was the quickest comfort the café offered. By the 1980s, one cost barely 20 pence, cheap enough to buy on a whim and warm enough to defrost cold fingers. Children pestered for them, workers grabbed them on a break. Oral histories recall the shower of flakes down a coat front, the heat of the pastry, and the simple, greedy pleasure of a warm sausage roll eaten far too quickly, then immediately regretted for being finished. Number 6. The thick milkshake was the café's answer to a sweet tooth, so dense it fought the straw every step of the way. Served in a tall glass, whipped to a foam and topped with froth, it came in strawberry pink, chocolate brown, or pale banana yellow, cold enough to give you brain freeze if you gulped too fast. Children treated it as an event, cheeks hollowing with the effort of drawing it up, racing to the bottom for the last thick sludge. In the 1970s, a shake cost around 20 pence, an affordable indulgence for a shopping day treat. Diaries recall the ache of pulling that shake through a straw, the sweetness coating the tongue, and the small triumph of finishing one without a headache. For a whole generation, the thick Café milkshake was the first taste of a drink that felt like pudding. Number 5. The banana split was the pudding that turned a café table into an occasion. A whole banana, halved lengthways, cradled 3 scoops of ice cream, all buried under swirls of raspberry sauce, a scatter of chopped nuts, and a proud swirl of squirty cream with a cherry perched on top. It arrived in a long, boat-shaped dish that barely fit the table, a spectacle that turned heads across the room. In the 1970s, it cost around 40 pence, the sort of treat reserved for birthdays and good behavior. Children gasped at the size of it, spoons at the ready, wondering if they could possibly finish. Oral histories recall the melting sauce pooling in the dish, the cold cream, and the sheer, giddy extravagance of a pudding that felt like far too much of a good thing ordered on the very best of days. Number 4. Apple pie and custard was the warm, familiar close to a café dinner, a pudding that tasted of every Sunday at home. A wedge of pie, its pastry crisp and its filling sharp with stewed apple, sat drowning in a thick yellow river of hot custard poured from a battered jug. Steam rose the moment it landed, fogging the edge of the table on a cold day. By the 1980s, it cost around 30 pence, the comforting standard of the pudding menu. Grandparents ordered it out of habit, children out of the promise of custard, which many scraped up first and asked for more. Diaries recall the cut of the sharp apple against the sweet custard, the pastry softening at the edges, and the deep contentment of a hot pudding served by someone else on a plate you never had to wash. Number 3. Jam, roly-poly, and custard rolled onto café plates as the heaviest, homeliest pudding of them all. A thick spiral of suet sponge, streaked through with bright red jam, arrived in generous slices swimming in custard, dense enough to slow the hungriest child and sweet enough to lift the greyest afternoon. It carried the ghost of the school dinner hall, a taste that sent grown adults straight back to childhood with the first spoonful. In the 1970s, it cost around 30 pence, unbeatable value for a proper stodge. Regulars ordered it knowing it would see them through to tea time and beyond. Oral histories recall the jam bleeding into the custard, the sponge soaking up the yellow, and the comforting weight of a pudding that made no apology for its heaviness. It was thrift and joy served warm, a spoonful of the old Britain still on the menu. Number 2. Peach Melba brought a flash of elegance to the sweet counter, a sundae that felt borrowed from a grander place. Scoops of vanilla ice cream nestled against halved tinned peaches, all cloaked in a glossy raspberry sauce and finished with a swirl of cream and a scatter of flaked almonds. Served in a fluted glass dish, it looked like something from a hotel dining room rather than a shop in the middle of the high street. In the 1970s, it cost around 35 pence, the refined choice for those who wanted a pudding with a little glamour. Diaries recall the cold sweetness of the peaches, the tang of the raspberry, and the small thrill of ordering a dessert with a proper name. For many, Peach Melba was the fanciest thing they ever ate at Woolworths, and all the more treasured for it. And finally, in first place, the Knickerbocker glory crowned the Woolworths Café as the pudding every child in Britain dreamed of ordering. Towering in its tall, narrow glass, it stacked layers of ice cream, tinned fruit, jelly, and raspberry sauce, climbing higher and higher until it was topped with a mountain of squirty cream, a scatter of nuts, and a single glistening cherry. It came with a long-handled spoon built to reach the very bottom, a tool for a serious mission. In the 1970s, it cost around 50 pence, the grandest order on the menu and the ultimate reward for a well-behaved shopping trip. Children stared up at it in disbelief, digging through the layers in search of the treasure beneath. Oral histories recall the clink of the long spoon against the glass, the race to reach the jelly, and the pure, uncomplicated wonder on a small face as that tower arrived at the table. It was more than a pudding. It was the reason children begged to go to Woolworths at all, the shining promise at the end of every shop. When the doors closed in 2009, it was the Knickerbocker glory that Britain seemed to mourn the loudest, a glass tower of childhood that no supermarket cafe ever managed to rebuild. From a frothy coffee to that towering glass of ice cream, these 25 meals were never really about the food. They were about the pause in the day, the shared table, the small treat earned at the end of a shop. When Woolworths closed its doors, Britain didn't just lose a shop. It lost the cafe where a whole nation once sat down together. Which one would you order one last time? Let me know in the comments.